They marched under his banner, swore oaths to his name, and fought in wars he began. For many, the Führer was a distant figure, a symbol of national revival after the humiliation of World War I. His promises of unity, order, and pride restored faith in a broken country. Others, especially early recruits and officers, embraced his ideology fully, convinced they were fighting for Germany's destiny. But as the war dragged on and the front lines turned to chaos, admiration gave way to doubt, then despair. Letters from the Eastern Front reveal a spectrum of belief, loyalty, fear, guilt, and quiet disillusionment. Behind the uniforms were ordinary men, some fanatical, some faithful, and some silently horrified by the regime they served. What they thought of Hitler was as complex as the war itself. In 1935, when Hitler reintroduced conscription, every recruit swore a sacred oath of loyalty, not to the nation or constitution, but to Hitler personally.
I swear, by God, this sacred oath that I shall render unconditional obedience to Adolf Hitler, the Führer of the German Reich and people.
This oath fused obedience with morality. Questioning Hitler became treason, and patriotism became inseparable from his name. By 1939, the Wehrmacht numbered more than 3 million men, most believing they served Germany's rebirth after the humiliation of World War I. But what they truly served was a dictator's will, and few realized the difference until it was too late. The German armed forces were not one body of believers. The regular Wehrmacht, the ideologically driven Waffen-SS, and the Nazi Party's various paramilitary organizations each had different loyalties and levels of exposure to Nazi ideology. The regular army, the Heer, Luftwaffe, and Kriegsmarine, consisted mostly of common Germans, factory workers, farmers, clerks, and students. Many were not party members. They fought for duty, family, and survival, not ideology. They viewed Hitler as the leader who had restored order and jobs, not as a prophet of racial war. The Waffen-SS, by contrast, was the ideological spearhead. Its men swore direct loyalty to Hitler, trained in racial doctrine, and were told they were the elite of the Aryan race. They were deeply involved in atrocities and extermination campaigns. Together, these forces created a paradox, an army that looked united but was divided in spirit, the Wehrmacht fighting largely for Germany and the Waffen-SS fighting for Hitler's ideology. At the start of the war, Hitler's popularity among soldiers was genuine. He had ended high unemployment, rebuilt the military, and reclaimed lost territories without bloodshed. The Blitzkrieg victories in Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Low Countries, and France seemed to prove his genius. Letters from 1940 overflowed with pride. One soldier wrote home after France fell,
Everything the Führer promised has come true. He has given us back our strength and honor.
To many young Germans raised in the Hitler Youth, this war felt righteous, a continuation of national renewal. They believed they were defending Germany's destiny, not advancing tyranny. When Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, the war became something else entirely. The invasion of the Soviet Union exposed German soldiers to mass executions, starvation, and the annihilation of civilians. Propaganda had promised liberation. Reality brought brutality. In letters and diaries from the Eastern Front, Wehrmacht soldiers often confessed what they witnessed.
We burn everything. Houses, barns, people. They tell us it is necessary. I no longer know what is right or wrong. The Russians are poor farmers, not beasts. The orders are merciless. This is not the Germany I was proud of.
Such writings reveal how Nazi ideology clashed with the soldiers' lived experience. Many felt trapped, bound by their oath and fear of punishment, yet haunted by guilt and disbelief. By Stalingrad, in 1943, belief in Hitler's infallibility began to collapse. His refusal to allow retreat condemned hundreds of thousands. Even as faith faded, obedience remained. Disobedience was death. The Feldgendarmerie, the dreaded military police, patrolled the front, executing deserters and defeatists. Quiet despair was expressed in letters home.
You cannot say it aloud, but many no longer believe in victory. We fight because we must. To stop is to die.
The system's strength was psychological. Soldiers had been raised in cadavergehorsam, corpse obedience. They had been taught that orders must be followed absolutely, even against conscience. Combined with Hitler's personal oath, it created an army where disbelief could not overcome obedience. Among the officer corps, respect for Hitler eroded as the war turned against Germany. Generals who once praised his daring came to see his interference as disastrous. After Stalingrad, several senior officers began to conspire against him. The most famous attempt came on July 20th, 1944, when Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg placed a bomb inside Hitler's headquarters. The assassination failed and Hitler survived. The regime executed over 200 officers and thousands of suspects. These men were not Democrats or revolutionaries. They were patriots who believed Hitler had betrayed Germany. Their rebellion showed that faith in him had shattered even within his own command. While doubt spread through the ranks, Joseph Goebbels' Ministry of Propaganda fought to keep the illusion alive. Frontline newspapers declared every defeat a strategic withdrawal. Newsreels showed Hitler calm and confident, though he stopped appearing in public regularly. Even in 1944, soldiers received bulletins promising miracle weapons that would reverse the war. As Allied forces closed in from both east and west, belief in Hitler collapsed almost entirely. He ordered cities defended to the last man, sacrificing soldiers, civilians, and even women and children. Even within the Waffen-SS, morale crumbled. By April 1945, most soldiers fought not for Hitler, but for each other. When Hitler committed suicide on April 30th, 1945, few mourned him at the front. When the war ended, millions of German prisoners faced a new question. What had they been fighting for? In post-war interviews and memoirs, most claimed they had not been Nazis, that they fought for their country, not for Hitler. Historians find truth in that, but also avoidance. While many soldiers were not ideological fanatics, their obedience made Hitler's crimes possible. The invasion of Poland, the Holocaust in the East, and the destruction of Europe all depended on the Wehrmacht's participation. Yet, for many German soldiers, disobedience meant execution, imprisonment, or reprisals against their families. And many did not fully grasp the genocidal scope of Nazi policy, and propaganda masked mass murder. By 1945, German soldiers fell broadly into three categories. The first, true believers, mostly in the Waffen-SS and Nazi party units, driven by racial ideology and loyalty to Hitler until the end. The second, the dutiful and fearful, ordinary soldiers who obeyed orders out of habit, fear, or duty. They did not fight for Nazism, but neither did they resist it. The third, the disillusioned, a smaller group who saw Hitler's madness and grew quietly bitter, or, in rare cases, resisted. The Wehrmacht was therefore not a monolith of devotion, but a spectrum, from fanatics to skeptics, bound together by fear and circumstance. So, what did German soldiers really think of Hitler? In the beginning, many admired him, the man who rebuilt their country and restored their pride. But admiration was not understanding. Most knew little of his full ideology or the genocidal policies that accompanied it. By the final years, soldiers fought not for Hitler, but because obedience and survival left no other choice. When the fighting ended, they faced the ruin of a nation and the realization that the man they once trusted had led them into catastrophe. They were not all believers, they were not all monsters, they were human, shaped by propaganda, fear, and loyalty, twisted into obedience. Some saw the truth too late, and in that lies the enduring warning of their story, that unquestioned loyalty to one man can turn duty into destruction and faith into ruin.